My family ignored my graduation for my golden child sister. 10 years later, they called me back with my dying dad's final wish: take care of her. So, about 10 days ago, I heard from my family for the first time in a decade. I'm 31 now, and the last time we spoke, I was 21, fresh out of college. Not long after graduation, I made the choice to cut ties and put some serious distance between us. The reason was simple: the way they treated me compared to my twin sister, Rebecca. Rebecca and I were born 12 minutes apart, but those 12 minutes might as well have been a lifetime with how differently we were raised. For reasons I still can't explain, she's always been the favorite, the golden child. My parents bent over backward for her, while I always felt like an afterthought. It never mattered how much I accomplished, I was always the one trying harder, doing better, and still coming up short in their eyes. I was the one who got the higher grades, who excelled at sports, who even beat her at the things she prided herself on, like art. You name it, I worked twice as hard just trying to catch a glimpse of the kind of affection they gave her so easily. Deep down, I thought if I could just outshine her, maybe they'd finally see me. Maybe they'd care. But it seemed like the more I tried, the more they pulled away. I guess to them, I looked like I was trying to humiliate her or show off, when all I really wanted was to be loved the same way. They gave her everything in classes she wanted, gifts she asked for, you name it. My parents were completely wrapped around her finger. Meanwhile, I was told not to be greedy or spoiled any time I asked for something. The double standards were obvious, but what really cut deep was college. When the time came, Rebecca decided she wanted to take a year off, which eventually turned into 3. She never ended up going to college at all. I, on the other hand, got into a well-respected business school thanks to my solid grades. But when I asked my parents for help with tuition, they flat out told me I'd have to take out loans and handle it myself. Their reasoning? I was already 18, so they didn't feel obligated to support me financially anymore. That hurt a lot. But I didn't argue. I just swallowed it because I needed the loan help. Deep down, I started to accept that they'd never love me like they loved her. While I was in college, I kept my distance. I barely reached out, only going home during the holidays, and even then, I avoided most conversations. After high school, I made a choice to emotionally detach from them, just so I wouldn't keep getting my heart broken. Right before graduation, I sent them an invitation to the ceremony. I tried calling, emailed them, even thought about showing up at their place. But they never answered. Not a call, not a reply. Eventually, I took the hint they didn't want to be there. Afterward, I found out through a couple of relatives that they had skipped my graduation because it fell on the same day as Rebecca's first day at art school. Her first day. Not even a real event, just her showing up for class at the local community college half an hour away from home. But apparently, that was more important than me graduating. That was the moment it really hit me: my presence, my accomplishments, they didn't matter to them. That was the day I finally understood they didn't want me around. And honestly, not pretending I had a family anymore, that was a relief. So I cut them off completely. I blocked my parents on everything and decided I was done pretending. I did the same with Rebecca. Our relationship had never been close. She carried herself like she was better than me, probably because she got so much validation from our parents. The truth is, she always knew I was more capable, and that made her insecure. So she constantly tried to tear me down. Well, the tables have turned now. I'm in a much better place than she is. She used to act so smug and superior, but I've done just fine without them. Cutting them out? I don't regret it one bit. It wasn't easy, though. I had no financial support and student loans breathing down my neck. I took the first job I could get and poured myself into proving I could make it on my own. Those early days were rough, but I was lucky to have a strong support system. Some of my closest friends from school really showed up for me. They believed in me, and that helped me believe in myself. Now, I'm not just surviving, I'm doing really well. I've spent the last 5 years working at a vegan products company, and I've been seriously considering starting my own business. Even though I'm not vegan, I've gotten really into that lifestyle over the years. I've done tons of research, and I think it's a booming market with so much potential. For the past few months, I've been bouncing ideas off people and even found a few who are interested in partnering with me. My plan was to spend the next few months developing a business model and laying the groundwork. Once I had a couple of investors lined up, I'd leave my job and finally take the leap. But then, last week, I got a message I wasn't expecting. My family reached out to tell me my dad is on his deathbed, and they asked me to come see him. It had been a full 10 years since I'd spoken to anyone in my family, so when they suddenly reached out, I was completely caught off guard. But once I found out that my dad had been battling cancer for the past 3 years, I didn't hesitate. I dropped everything and made the trip back home. Sadly, by the time I got there, it was already too late. His condition had gotten really bad, and there was no saving him. I guess this was their last attempt to patch things up, or maybe just another chance to talk about Rebecca, who knows? Either way, they asked me to come see him before it was all over. Walking into that hospital room and seeing my dad like that nearly broke me. I'd never seen him so fragile, and it hit me harder than I expected. My mom hugged me the second she saw me, and for a brief moment, all the pain from the past faded. I wasn't thinking about the years of hurt, I just wanted to know if he was going to make it through. Rebecca was there too, but we didn't say a word to each other. She didn't even try. She just shot me a look and sat quietly in the corner the entire time I was there. My mom talked to me, gave me updates about my father, but Rebecca acted like I didn't even exist. Honestly, that didn't surprise me. It annoyed me, sure, but I didn't let it get to me. I can't stand her, and I've got zero interest in whatever's going on in her life, so keeping our distance felt perfectly fine. No one in the family acted like it was strange either, they all knew how rocky my relationship was with them, especially with her. This all happened just a week ago. My dad passed away 2 days later, and since everyone already knew it was coming, my mom and Rebecca had everything planned out for the funeral. Things wrapped up quickly, and I was able to head back home. But before I left, I got roped into something I really didn't want to agree to. On the second day of my visit, Rebecca went home early because she was exhausted or whatever, so it ended up just being me and my parents in the hospital room. We started talking, and somehow the topic shifted to my job. I didn't think anything of it, I mean, my dad was literally on his deathbed. It never crossed my mind that they might have an agenda. So I told them the truth. I'd been working at a successful company for the past couple of years, and things were going well for me. They listened, said they were proud, and then, things took a turn. They started telling me about how badly Rebecca was doing. Apparently, she dropped out of community college just a few months in and never went back. She didn't have a degree, and her grades in high school hadn't been anything to brag about either, so she couldn't explain the gap on her resume. Honestly, she hadn't done anything worthwhile until she was 25. That's when our parents finally started pushing her to get a job. Even then, she couldn't hold anything down for more than 3 or 4 months. She kept coming back home, saying she quit because the jobs were too stressful or the pay wasn't good enough. The truth was, the pay was fair for someone without qualifications, and she just didn't want to put in the effort. She wasn't interested in building a future for herself. She was content relying on our parents, and every time they tried to talk to her about it, she'd blow them off. She quit her most recent job 6 months ago and had been sitting around at home ever since. My parents were clearly stressed. They said they were at their wits' end and were hoping I could step in. With my dad dying and my mom just a year away from retirement, they couldn't keep supporting Rebecca forever. My mom especially needed to start thinking about her own financial future and couldn't keep working just to bankroll someone who should have been independent by now. I didn't know what to say. I was overwhelmed. Here was my dad, dying in front of me after 10 years of no contact, and now I was being asked to take on a responsibility I didn't ask for. I told him I had plans of my own, that I was thinking about starting a business soon, and it wasn't the right time for me to take on a burden like this. I knew what kind of person Rebecca was. She wasn't interested in earning her own living. She was used to living off others, and I didn't see that changing anytime soon. Up until now, it had always been our dad footing most of the bills, since he earned more than our mom. But now that he was nearing the end, he was trying to hand off the torch to me. I understood why he felt the need to ask, but I also knew I wasn't in a position to say yes. Still, he insisted. He told me they'd already spent most of their savings on his treatment and that his main concern was making sure my mom would be okay after he was gone. And then he said something that caught me off guard. He told me he was counting on me to look after Rebecca. That he believed I'd do the right thing. The way he said it, I could tell he was trying to manipulate me, guilt me into it. And honestly, it worked. He asked me to put my business plans on hold, at least until Rebecca could get on her feet financially. He wanted me to promise I'd support her until she could stand on her own. I had no idea how long that would take, but I agreed. I didn't feel right saying no to a dying man, especially not my father, even after everything. No matter what my dad had done to me over the years, I just couldn't bring myself to say no to him, not while he was lying there dying. Looking back, maybe that was a dumb decision, but I don't think a lot of people in my shoes would have done things much differently. If someone out there could have stood up to their parents in a moment like that, I'd say they've got a kind of strength I just didn't have. So I agreed. I wasn't happy about it, not even close, but I did it anyway because, well, he was on his way out, and this was his final request. My parents laid out exactly what they wanted from me. Rebecca was apparently in a relationship with a guy she'd met back in school. His name's Jared, and he was living in another city, still within the same state, but far enough that they were doing the whole long-distance thing. I couldn't quite wrap my head around why they weren't visiting each other more often. I mean, it's not like Rebecca had a job. Jared did, so he could have made the trip more often. But from what I gathered, most of their relationship had played out online. The thing is, I know Jared. I went to school with him. And I know exactly what kind of guy he is. The moment I heard his name, alarms started going off in my head. That same night, my parents told me Rebecca had been talking to him for about 2 years, mostly over the internet. He'd only been back in town for a few weeks over the holidays, and that's when they finally got together in person. Now Jared, let's just say the man has a reputation. Back in school, he was known for hitting on every girl who gave him 5 seconds of attention. He cheated on more than one girlfriend, and people talked. After high school, I didn't follow his life too closely, but I'd heard from some old classmates that he'd already been married and divorced because of, you guessed it, cheating. I don't know what his deal is, but he's not someone I'd ever trust, let alone someone I'd want my sister dating. I tried to bring this up with my parents, but they brushed it off. They said Rebecca was really into him, and they'd seen the two of them together and thought they looked perfect, like they were really in love. I already had a sinking feeling about it. Long-distance relationships are hard enough, but when the guy has a history like Jared's? That's just a recipe for heartbreak. Still, my parents were convinced. They wanted me to pay for her flight so she could go visit him in the next couple of weeks. They were worried that once my dad passed, Rebecca would be too emotionally fragile to be alone. My mom would be tied up handling the legal stuff, and I'd be back to work, so they figured she'd need someone, and they wanted that someone to be Jared. I tried again to make them understand who this guy really was, but they wouldn't hear it. They kept going on about how Rebecca and Jared were going to get married and how it was only right that I help out financially, not just for the trip, but for the wedding in the future too. That's how convinced they were that he was the one for her. At that point, I realized I was wasting my breath. Nothing I said was going to change their minds, so I gave in. I agreed to it, just like everything else they'd asked. After the funeral, I pulled Rebecca aside and tried to talk to her directly. I told her I knew about Jared and warned her about his past. I laid it out plainly. I knew how he used to be, and I didn't think he'd changed all that much. But just like our parents, she didn't take it seriously. She told me he had changed, and she was sure of it. Said they were in love and he'd never hurt her. She thanked me for being concerned, but then she said something that really stung. She told me I didn't need to act like her parent. That she appreciated the money, but I didn't have to form any kind of emotional bond with her. She made it clear she didn't want it, and it wasn't necessary. That hit hard. But she was right in one way. My dad had only asked me to look out for her financially. He never said anything about trying to be a sister or having a close relationship. So from that moment on, I made up my mind. I was going to follow through on the promise I'd made, but I wasn't going to get emotionally entangled with them ever again. I had other things to focus on: my work, my future. After the funeral, I went back home, and a couple of days later, just like my mom asked, I booked Rebecca's flight to go see Jared. That was that. I didn't check in with anyone after that because I dove back into work and tried to move forward with my life. But then yesterday, something totally unexpected happened. I got a knock at my door, and when I opened it, there was Rebecca standing there with her suitcase. Turns out, she'd taken a bus all the way from Jared's city to mine. She didn't even call me beforehand. She told me later she was too embarrassed to ask for help, but she didn't want to go home either. She'd scraped together enough for the bus fare and rode for 10 hours just to show up on my doorstep. When Rebecca showed up at my door, she looked completely drained, physically and emotionally. The second I opened the door, she burst into tears. I had no clue what was going on, but between sobs, she told me I had been right all along. She said she decided to surprise Jared by showing up unannounced at his place. Unfortunately for her, the surprise backfired. When she got there, he wasn't alone, he was with another woman. Naturally, she confronted him, asking who the girl was. His response? He told her to mind her own business. Then he added that they weren't exclusive, so he was free to do whatever he wanted when he wasn't with her. Rebecca was stunned. She genuinely thought they were in a committed relationship, 2 years invested, dreaming of marriage, and here he was acting like she was just a side piece. The argument escalated fast. Right there in his hallway, in a burst of rage, she picked up her duffel bag and swung it at him. One of the bag's chains caught him right in the eyebrow, and it started bleeding heavily. That's when panic set in. She freaked out, ran to the bus stop, and caught the first ride out, 10 hours on a bus until she landed at my doorstep. She was too ashamed to call, didn't want to go back home, and had nowhere else to turn. She told me she wanted to change her life, that she was finally ready to grow up, become independent, and stop relying on everyone else. And she said I was the one she wanted to learn from. Since I'd been living on my own for almost a decade, she figured I could teach her the ropes, even offered to partner with me in my business rather than just work for me. It was a lot to take in all at once. Before I even thought about saying yes or no, I asked her something important: had Jared pressed charges? Because if he had, and she was involved in any kind of legal trouble, I wanted no part of it. No matter what he'd done, physically attacking someone wasn't okay. And if there was a case filed, I wasn't going to clean up her mess. That's when she admitted the truth: she hadn't actually gotten away clean. Jared had reported the incident, and she'd already been hit with a hefty fine as compensation. That was the real reason she showed up at my place. She was hoping I'd bail her out financially and emotionally. I told her flat out, I wasn't getting involved. I didn't want to be her safety net. I'd done what my father asked. I looked out for her, gave her a chance, but she blew it within a week. I reminded her that what she did was wrong, and I wasn't going to sacrifice my future to fix her mistakes. She got upset, of course. She threw my dad's deathbed promise back in my face. But I told her that promise didn't mean anything anymore. She had proven, yet again, that she wasn't serious about change. And I had no interest in dragging her into my business venture. She was a walking liability. I told her the most I'd do was book her a flight back home. After that, she was on her own. I had too much going on and too many goals to waste any more energy on her. She didn't argue. I'd already booked the ticket while we talked, and a few minutes later, she grabbed a cab to the airport. I thought that would be the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. My mom is furious. She thinks I should have shown more compassion. According to her, this was my chance to support my sister and be part of her healing. And instead, I turned my back on her. She says I'm selfish, but I don't see it that way at all. If anything, I was generous. I paid for Rebecca's trip back home. But the fine? The mess? That's on her. My mom won't stop calling or texting, harping on about the promise I made to my dad. But I've had enough. I don't owe anyone anything. Yes, I said I'd help. But that promise was made under pressure, when emotions were high, and I was being manipulated by a dying man who had always favored my sister. Update 1: It's been 3 days since I sent Rebecca away. My mom hasn't let up, so I finally blocked her. I know people think promises to the dying are sacred, but I never really wanted to make that one to begin with. My parents only reached out because they needed something. They didn't care about reconnecting with me. It was always about Rebecca, making sure she was taken care of after Dad passed. And sure, watching him die hurt. No matter what kind of relationship we had or didn't have, he was still my dad. But I can't pretend I miss him. I barely knew him anymore. We'd been strangers for 10 years. I do feel disappointed, though, disappointed that I let myself believe things could have been different. That maybe, just maybe, they cared about me as more than a backup plan. But that was wishful thinking. I see that now. I'm choosing to care about myself and my future. My sister? My parents? That's their world, not mine. I've got my own to build. Update 2: Rebecca messaged me today. I guess I forgot to block her. She said she'd paid off the fine and didn't need any help from me. She also added that Mom was furious and never wanted to see me again. Honestly, that's fine by me. They only ever valued what I could do for them, not who I was. They never took responsibility for how they treated me, and they never will. I didn't even respond. I just blocked her and moved on. For good this time. Update 3: It's been a couple of months, and I just wanted to share some good news. My business model is finally complete, and every investor I've spoken with so far has shown real interest. I'm putting in my resignation at work in the next few days, and I'm beyond ready for this next chapter of my life. I've gone fully no contact with my family again, and honestly, I've never felt better. Cutting ties, again, was the smartest decision I could have made. And this business I'm building? It's going to be my new family now.